Every day, most people drift through life, reacting to distractions, circumstances, and fleeting emotions, never fully in control of their own path. True success doesn't come from luck or motivation alone. It comes from focus, discipline, and intentional action. This video reveals how to take complete command of your life by prioritizing yourself, sharpening your skills, and building habits that compound into lasting achievement. From mastering your mindset to protecting your energy and leading with purpose, you'll discover actionable strategies that transform effort into results. Watch closely, because your next level of success starts with the choices you make today. Number 1, build inner clarity before goals. Clarity is not a luxury. It is the foundation of every reliable action and every meaningful victory. When purpose is hazy, energy scatters, ambition becomes noise, and days fill with busy work disguised as progress. Building inner clarity before chasing goals is a discipline. It is the quiet work that makes every outward effort smarter, faster, and more sustainable. The central truth: success follows a focused mind. Start by noticing the current landscape inside your head. The mind often resembles a crowded room, thoughts bumping into one another, unfinished tasks shouting for attention, old stories repeating in the background. That cacophony eats decision-making capacity and saps willpower. The first move toward clarity is to create order inside the room. A simple, practical ritual clears the air. Take 15 minutes with a pen and paper and do a complete mind sweep. Write everything down without judging it: appointments, resentments, ideas, worry. Seeing the list externally reduces anxiety and allows pattern recognition. The physical act of writing has weight. The scratch of the pen, the drag of the page under your fingers, anchors the mind in the present. That physicality matters. Clarity is rarely born in abstraction alone. Next, define what truly matters. Values are the compass. Goals are the route. People chase goals that sound impressive without checking whether those goals align with what they value. Values are not slogans. They are concrete priorities you would defend when choices get hard. Make a values list of no more than 5 items. For each one, write a sentence describing what it looks like in practice. If health is on the list, what daily behavior proves it? If mastery is listed, what measurable skill progression shows it? Translate values into observable action. This transforms vague preferences into a decision filter. When a new opportunity arrives, test it against your values. If it passes at least 2 of the 5, it merits consideration. If it passes none, decline quickly. Design a single, non-negotiable priority. Human attention is finite. Attempting to make 10 big things happen at once guarantees mediocrity. Choose one priority that will get the majority of your focused effort for the next 9 minutes. Plainly, ship the product MVP, or increase endurance to run a half marathon, or finish the professional certification. Write this priority at the top of your notebook and put it where you will see it every morning. The brain will begin aligning smaller decisions around this declared intention. Make it specific enough to measure and small enough to be believable. Ambition should be disciplined by realism. Create a straightforward morning check that connects intention to action. Before reaching for a phone or opening a laptop, use 3 questions to center the day. What is my one priority today? What would a disciplined version of me do first? What is one small victory I can ensure before noon? Answer these clearly and physically speak them aloud. Write them or whisper them while breathing slowly 3 times. This short ritual rewires automatic reactions into deliberate choices. It changes the tone of the day from reactive to intentional. Set boundaries that protect clarity. Information and requests will flood in continuously. Without disciplined borders, attention fractures. Choose 2 specific boundaries to enforce. One for time, for example, no email before 10 a.m., and one for energy, for example, no more than 2 meetings per day. Communicate these boundaries plainly to colleagues and family. The awkwardness of saying no at first is the cost of preserving the conditions for consistent progress. Boundary setting is not selfishness. It is stewardship of your capacity. Performance improves when the inner and outer environments match. Declutter not just the desk, but the digital space. Remove icons, delete apps that invite scrolling, and organize folders so the next action is obvious. The brain dislikes frictionless distraction. Reduce sources of temptation by making access slightly harder. Move social apps to a folder, log out, or keep the phone in another room during focus blocks. Replace distractions with small sensory anchors that support attention. A plain ceramic cup for morning water, a cloth you touch when you start work, or a short playlist of the same 3 tracks used only for deep focus. These tactile cues create a ritualized transition into concentration. Practice solitude as a skill. Silence breeds clarity. Regular blocks of uninterrupted time, 20 to 90 minutes, allow deeper thought and better decisions. Use solitude to ask the hard questions. What problem am I actually solving? Which assumptions underlie my plan? Where am I compromising my standards to avoid discomfort? The answers will be quiet at first, but consistent solitude gives them space to grow. Use a timer and treat this time as a sacred meeting with yourself. Turn clarity into a decision filter. When faced with choices, apply a short test. Does this action reduce friction toward the one priority? Does it align with 2 of my top 5 values? Will this move still matter in 90 days? If the answer is no across the board, decline. Habits of immediate yes are the enemy of clarity. Training the reflex to ask 3 short questions before committing protects long-term focus. Measure progress in ways that reinforce clarity, not vanity. Instead of tracking surface-level metrics that gratify instantly, choose metrics that reflect the process. If the priority is to write a book, count focused writing sessions and word counts rather than likes on social posts about writing. If the priority is fitness, track sessions completed and sleep quality rather than appearance-based comparisons. Process metrics keep attention on the levers that actually change outcomes. Keep a small ledger, physical or digital, that records these process wins daily. The ledger becomes proof that clarity is producing results. Practice the 2-minute clarity reset. When overwhelm arrives, stop and breathe for 30 seconds. Then spend 2 minutes listing the next 3 physical actions that would move the priority forward. The brevity of the exercise prevents overanalysis while restoring direction. The body calms, the mind quickens. Use the reset whenever decisions bog you down or emotions cloud judgment. Prepare for doubt by normalizing it. Clarity does not eliminate fear. It organizes how fear appears. Expect resistance, boredom, worry, the impulse to justify distraction. When doubt shows up, name it. Saying aloud, "This is doubt, I will proceed anyway," reduces its power. Create a short library of counterstatements that are truthful and practical. Discipline feeds results over time, or progress is made by small, repeated actions. Use these as simple anchors during low-energy moments. Accountability refines clarity into habit. Share the one priority and the concrete process metrics with a trusted person who will hold you to the standard. Weekly check-ins create deadlines and external pressure that align with internal goals. Choose someone who asks direct questions rather than offering vague praise. Honest friction from another person is a signal, not a threat. It reveals where clarity fails to translate into action. Create a monthly review ritual that tightens the lens. On a fixed day each month, spend an hour reviewing the ledger, values alignment, and progress toward the 90-day priority. Ask 3 questions in writing. What worked? What drifted me away? What will I adjust next month? Write the answers and schedule one specific change to implement immediately. The monthly review is where intuition meets evidence, and small corrections prevent large detours. Finally, cultivate a patient urgency. Clarity fuels speed, but haste without direction wastes energy. Treat time as the ally it is. Act with the insistence of someone who knows what matters and when it must be completed. This combination, calm clarity and purposeful speed, creates momentum. The work is steady and observable. Victories compound. The sensory reality of clarity matters. Notice the relief of an empty mental space, the weight of a focused hand, completing a task, the taste of achievement after a disciplined day. These are not abstract rewards. They are lived sensations that reinforce the habit of clarity. Name them. Remember the quiet pride that arrives after a disciplined morning, the loosened jaw and steadier breath. Collect these moments as evidence that inner order creates outer results. Building inner clarity before goals is a practice of small, repeated choices, writing to empty the mind, naming values, choosing one priority, protecting attention, measuring process, and reviewing honestly. Each practice is modest on its own. Together they form a system. The system reduces wasted motion, increases the quality of decisions, and turns effort into compound progress. Clarity does not promise an easy path, but it guarantees a better one shaped by intention rather than distraction. Take a moment now and do one small, decisive action. Write the single priority for the next 90 days in a place you will see. Then list 3 actions you can complete before noon tomorrow that move that priority forward. This small demonstration of clarity will immediately change the shape of the next day. Continue the practice daily. Over time, the inner room will remain ordered, the compass steady, and the path forward clear. The outcome is not guaranteed by desire alone. It is earned through disciplined focus. Build clarity first, and the victories will follow. Number 2, strengthen mindset through daily discipline. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the scaffolding that supports every meaningful achievement. A strong mindset is forged not in moments of comfort, but in the repeated practice of deliberate actions, consistently applied. Each day offers countless opportunities to strengthen the mind, yet most drift through routines passively, allowing circumstances and emotions to dictate behavior. Developing a resilient mindset through daily discipline transforms uncertainty into control, challenges into lessons, and small victories into momentum that compounds over time. It begins with the recognition that the mind, like any muscle, grows through deliberate, consistent strain. The first step is to establish unwavering structure in daily routines. Chaos corrodes focus. When the day starts without intention, the mind splinters into endless reactive decisions, leaving energy exhausted before meaningful work begins. Establish predictable anchors, a morning ritual, a set period for deep work, designated breaks, and an evening reflection. Each anchor is a signal to the nervous system that the day has rhythm and purpose. Over time, these structures reduce mental friction, leaving more capacity for strategic thought, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Discipline thrives in predictable spaces where distractions are minimized and priorities are elevated. Start with small, non-negotiable practices. Discipline is not built through grand gestures, but through tiny commitments, consistently honored. Decide on one action that will always occur regardless of mood or circumstance. It could be a 20-minute run, writing 3 pages, reading a chapter of a challenging book, or a brief meditation. The key is consistency. The repetition ingrains neural pathways that reinforce self-control. Each act becomes a signal to the subconscious. You are someone who follows through. Momentum emerges quietly, and confidence in your ability to persist strengthens exponentially. Mental resilience requires confronting discomfort deliberately. Growth seldom occurs in comfort zones. Daily discipline is a method to deliberately expose the mind to manageable stress. This could involve delaying gratification, facing challenging tasks first, or tackling tasks that provoke resistance. Each encounter teaches the brain to navigate tension without panic or avoidance. Over weeks and months, these incremental exposures accumulate, transforming stress into opportunity, anxiety into focus, and indecision into action. Discipline in this context is a form of courage, the commitment to act despite internal resistance. Language shapes perception, and disciplined self-talk reinforces mindset. Pay attention to internal dialogue. Replace reactive or self-deprecating thoughts with structured, affirming statements that focus on action and capability. Phrases like "I choose to complete this task" or "persistence is stronger than temporary discomfort" rewire the mind over time. Discipline is strengthened when speech, internal or external, aligns with chosen behavior. Words, repeated consistently, become cognitive anchors, ensuring that even when motivation fades, the mind remains tethered to purpose and direction. Physical environment plays a critical role in reinforcing daily discipline. A cluttered or distracting space constantly pulls attention away from deliberate action. Arrange surroundings to support the behaviors that matter most. Designate areas for work, learning, or reflection, free from extraneous stimuli. Tools and resources for the day's priorities should be immediately accessible, reducing friction between intention and execution. Small sensory cues, such as a single clean notebook, a particular pen, or a dedicated workspace, can trigger focus and subtly reinforce the habit of discipline. Over time, the environment itself becomes a silent partner in strengthening minds. Time management is inseparable from mental fortitude. Discipline is strengthened when tasks are framed not as endless obligations, but as time-bound challenges. Allocate specific blocks for each priority, honor start and end times, and resist overextension. The rhythm of measured work trains the mind to sustain effort while reducing burnout. When completion is tethered to time rather than emotion or fluctuating energy, consistency becomes more attainable, and the mind internalizes the expectation of sustained performance. Each successfully managed block compounds confidence, proving that focus is not random but intentional. Embrace reflection as a cornerstone of daily discipline. The mind strengthens when it has opportunities to evaluate performance, notice patterns, and identify improvements. Dedicate a small period each day to honest review. What was executed well? Where did attention slip? What internal obstacles emerged? Writing these observations externalizes the thought process, reduces cognitive noise, and clarifies adjustments. Reflection is not self-judgment. It is data collection for strategic refinement. Over time, this practice converts experience into wisdom and strengthens the mind's capacity to navigate increasingly complex challenges. Accountability amplifies the power of discipline. Internal resolve alone is fragile. Humans are social creatures, responsive to external feedback. Share goals and daily habits with a trusted partner who will ask hard questions and track consistency. Even minimal external pressure increases adherence, reinforcing the habit loop. The mind internalizes the expectation of accountability, which solidifies self-discipline over weeks and months. Stronger mindset emerges not only from personal effort, but also from deliberate connection with others who mirror commitment, creating a feedback loop that sustains momentum. Purposeful discomfort, scheduled consistently, transforms discipline into resilience. Identify areas where resistance typically arises, tasks you procrastinate, emotions you avoid, or challenges that provoke uncertainty, and integrate them into daily practice. Overcoming these friction points, however small, expands tolerance for difficulty and reduces reactive behavior. Each encounter reinforces the principle that discomfort is temporary but mastery is enduring. The repeated choice to act despite unease strengthens the mind's structural integrity, creating a framework capable of withstanding setbacks without collapsing into chaos or surrender. Success hinges on incremental progress, rather than sporadic inspiration. Daily discipline converts small, repeated actions into compounding advantage. Focus on measurable, achievable tasks that align with long-term objectives. Every morning, identify the most critical actions that advance these objectives and commit to completing them. By consistently executing, even in modest increments, the mind gains proof of efficacy and reliability. This reinforcement is vital. Confidence grows in proportion to repeated success, and the mind internalizes the pattern of productive action. Visualization supplements discipline by linking action to outcome. Daily, spend a brief period imagining the successful completion of the priority tasks, not as abstract fantasy, but as concrete sensory experience. Feel the tension release after completing a difficult task. Notice the satisfaction of a skill executed well, and sense the calm of order maintained despite challenges. This mental rehearsal strengthens neural pathways, making real execution more fluid and consistent. Discipline is thus supported by both tangible action and intentional mental practice, each reinforcing the other. Adversity must be reframed as opportunity. Daily discipline is challenged when fatigue, distraction, or setbacks occur. A resilient mindset interprets obstacles not as threats, but as signals requiring adjustment, learning, or renewed effort. This perspective shift prevents emotional volatility from derailing progress. Discipline is not rigid adherence, but adaptive persistence, the the capacity to maintain effort aligned with principle despite situational fluctuations. Each obstacle mastered reinforces the neural architecture of resilience and mental strength. Journaling consolidates learning and reinforces awareness. And each day, by capturing lessons, noting successes, and recording deviations from planned actions, the process of articulating experience solidifies insights and allows the mind to track growth over time. Patterns become evident, revealing both strengths and vulnerabilities. By externalizing thought, the mind is freed from repetitive loops, enabling sharper focus the next day. Daily documentation becomes a tangible record of disciplined action, a visible ledger of mental fortitude. The cumulative effect of daily discipline is profound. Small, consistent actions, repeated without reliance on transient motivation, cultivate a mindset resilient to stress, temptation, and distraction. Energy once wasted on indecision and scattered focus is redirected toward purposeful effort. Over weeks and months, habits crystallize into identity, a person who acts consistently, who responds deliberately, and whose mind functions as a reliable tool rather than a reactive passenger. This transformation is not mystical. It is the natural consequence of structured, persistent practice. Every day, the choice to act, to honor commitments, to face discomfort, and to reflect carefully strengthens the mind. Daily discipline is a ritual of self-empowerment, a continuous reinforcement of internal authority. The more consistently the practice is maintained, the less external chaos can dictate outcomes. The mind becomes not only stronger, but also more agile, capable of evaluating situations calmly, making strategic decisions, and maintaining focus amidst uncertainty. Strength is built incrementally, but once established, it forms the foundation for enduring success. To internalize this, start today with a single, deliberate action that reinforces discipline. Select a task you might otherwise defer, complete it fully, and document the process. Observe the mental clarity, satisfaction, and subtle increase in confidence it generates. Repeat daily, increasing complexity gradually, and allow these small victories to accumulate. In time, the disciplined mind will become the default state, and the strength derived from these repeated, intentional choices will ripple through every area of life. Mental fortitude is not a product of chance, but a consequence of persistent, deliberate daily practice. Number 3, cut distractions to regain control. Distractions are not merely interruptions. They are silent thieves of intention, quietly eroding focus, energy, and progress. Every time attention shifts away from what truly matters, momentum dissolves. Regaining control begins with the understanding that focus is a resource, finite and precious. Each conscious effort to eliminate unnecessary diversions multiplies effectiveness exponentially. The mind is designed to wander, to respond to novelty, to be pulled by external stimuli, and this wiring requires active management. Mastery over distractions is less about removing external elements entirely and more about creating an internal architecture that consistently prioritizes significance over triviality. The first step is to conduct a comprehensive audit of what fragments attention. This requires honest observation over several days. Record every instance when concentration breaks, a ping from a phone, an unnecessary browser tab, a habitual conversation, a thought loop. Categorize these interruptions into themes: digital, social, environmental, and internal. Seeing the patterns externalized highlights areas previously invisible, and it gives a clear roadmap for targeted action. The act of documenting distraction itself increases awareness, a critical precursor to control. Once the audit is complete, design the environment deliberately. Visual and auditory clutter can be more draining than obvious disturbances. Rearrange the workspace so that only tools essential to current priorities are present. Clear surfaces, organize materials, and store items not immediately needed out of sight. The visual simplicity reduces cognitive load, preventing the mind from subconsciously scanning for irrelevant stimuli. Even subtle adjustments, a consistent lighting source, a comfortable chair, minimal decorative objects, support prolonged engagement. The brain thrives in environments that subtly guide attention toward important tasks. Digital distractions are among the most insidious, and require precise intervention. Notifications are designed to hijack attention, to trigger dopamine responses that compete with deep work. Disable all non-essential alerts. Consider scheduled windows for checking email, messages, and social platforms. Create digital zones dedicated solely to productivity, where only applications necessary for the task are accessible. The friction of having to consciously enter these zones teaches the mind to respect boundaries. The momentary resistance required strengthens focus by reinforcing intentionality over automatic reaction. Social interactions, while often necessary, can also disrupt flow. Guarding attention means establishing clear boundaries around communication. Define times for interaction, whether with colleagues, friends, or family, and make those boundaries known. Use tools like status indicators, brief check-in emails, or shared calendars to minimize unscheduled interruptions. The act of explicitly setting boundaries communicates both to others and to yourself that your attention has a value that deserves protection. Consistency in these practices trains the brain to expect controlled interaction instead of chaotic responsiveness. Internal distractions, wandering thoughts, worry, and mental chatter can be even more persistent than external ones. These arise when the mind has not been anchored to deliberate focus. Techniques such as single tasking, structured note-taking, and brief mental resets help contain these intrusions. When thoughts drift, note them quickly without judgment, then return immediately to the task. Over time, this practice strengthens cognitive control, teaching the mind to acknowledge intrusions without being hijacked by them. The discipline of redirecting attention is as important as the elimination of external interruptions. Creating a hierarchy of priorities is critical. Not all tasks are equal, and attempting to attend to everything simultaneously guarantees scattered attention. Identify the most impactful work each day and devote uninterrupted blocks of time to it. When priorities are clearly defined, saying no to lesser demands becomes easier. The power of deliberate omission cannot be overstated. Every task not undertaken frees energy and focus for those that truly move objectives forward. Intentional neglect is a form of productivity when applied to the non-essential. Time blocking is an effective tool for sustaining attention. Allocate fixed periods for concentrated effort, breaks, and transitional tasks. Begin with smaller blocks, 45 to 60 minutes, allowing for a natural physiological cycle of alertness. During these intervals, remove all potential interruptions, signal availability to others as limited, and focus exclusively on the chosen task. The temporal boundary creates a psychological container in which attention can fully engage, reducing the cognitive burden of deciding when to start or stop. Gradually, the mind adapts to these cycles, improving both stamina and quality of work. Habits play a crucial role in maintaining a distraction-free life. Daily routines reinforce attention management subconsciously. Morning rituals that prioritize the most important work first, evening reflections that assess where attention was lost, and repeated adherence to time blocks establish an automatic infrastructure for focus. Once habits are ingrained, the effort required to initiate and sustain concentration decreases, and the mind is less likely to succumb to impulses. Discipline becomes habitual, and the protective scaffolding around attention solidifies. Sensory management is another overlooked strategy. Noise, light, temperature, and tactile discomfort can subtly erode focus. Identify the conditions under which concentration thrives, then systematically create them. This may include soft instrumental background music, consistent natural light, or a preferred writing instrument or notebook. These subtle sensory cues anchor attention, creating a stable environment that supports deep engagement. Over time, the body associates these conditions with productive mental states, making focus more automatic and less effortful. Mindfulness practices enhance the ability to manage both internal and external distractions. Brief daily exercises in awareness, such as controlled breathing, scanning the body, or observing thoughts without judgment, increase metacognitive control. The more a person can notice attention shifting without immediately reacting, the more they can redirect it to chosen tasks. This skill becomes increasingly valuable as responsibilities and environmental complexity grow. Mindfulness does not eliminate distraction, but increases the capacity to engage deliberately in the presence of stimuli. Strategically scheduling periods of intentional disengagement reinforces control. The mind requires breaks to process, consolidate memory, and sustain motivation. Breaks should be purposeful and restorative, not accidental diversion. A short walk, a brief stretch, or a moment of quiet reflection recharges cognitive capacity and reduces the likelihood of succumbing to random interruptions. Structured rest, integrated with concentrated work, maximizes output while preserving mental clarity. The balance between focus and rest strengthens endurance and makes sustained attention feasible. Decision fatigue is a major contributor to distraction. Every choice depletes cognitive energy, increasing susceptibility to interruption. Reduce trivial decisions by standardizing routines, pre-planned meals, clothing, work sequences, and digital interactions. The cognitive bandwidth saved allows the mind to resist the lure of fleeting stimuli and maintain focus on priority objectives. Clarity in small daily choices amplifies control in larger, more consequential ones. Discipline in the mundane compounds, providing insulation against the subtle erosion of attention. Reflection consolidates gains. At the end of each day, review where attention was diverted and identify triggers. Ask which moments of distraction were preventable, which were signals of internal unrest, and which represent structural deficiencies in the environment or schedule. Note patterns, then implement targeted adjustments. Iterative refinement ensures that control over attention is not static, but dynamic, growing more precise over time. The mind learns not just to resist distraction, but to anticipate and preempt it. The ultimate benefit of cutting distractions is not simply productivity, it is autonomy. Attention is the currency of action. When distractions are minimized, the mind can invest fully in the creation of outcomes, the pursuit of mastery, and the development of character. The capacity to remain fully engaged amplifies learning, accelerates skill acquisition, and fosters confidence. Control over attention becomes a defining feature of personal power, enabling deliberate choice rather than reactive drift. To implement these principles, begin with one focused environment adjustment today. Remove a single distraction, set a timed block for uninterrupted work, or enforce a brief digital boundary. Observe the effect on performance and mental clarity. Repeat daily, layering adjustments progressive. Each incremental improvement compounds, and over weeks and months, the mind becomes a fortress of focused intention. The ability to cut distractions is not an occasional act, but a continuous, evolving practice that restores control over life and amplifies every meaningful effort. Mastery over distraction transforms life from fragmented chaos into deliberate, purpose-driven experience. Every removal of interference, every boundary respected, and every deliberate period of attention is an act of reclaiming agency. Distractions are inevitable, but control is optional, and it is won through consistent, intentional effort. Repeated, disciplined attention to this practice cultivates a mind capable of sustained focus, deep work, and the creation of tangible, lasting results. The path to control begins with the conscious decision to remove what does not serve your highest purpose, and to fiercely protect the space in which success can emerge. Number 4. Create routines that raise standards. Routines are the invisible architecture that shapes the trajectory of a life. They are the repeated actions that quietly define competence, discipline, and character. Without intentional routines, days drift, habits form haphazardly, and standards erode silently. Creating routines that elevate standards is not about strict regimentation or mindless repetition. It is about designing behaviors that consistently pull performance and character upward, moment by moment. The smallest repeated actions compound over time, transforming ordinary days into extraordinary results. Standards are raised not by one grand gesture, but by a relentless commitment to thoughtful patterns of action. The process begins with identifying what currently dictates the rhythm of the day. Most people allow convenience and urgency to shape behavior, resulting in low-level functioning and reactive living. Examine every hour what habits are productive, which are passive, and which actively lower standards. Observe the triggers that initiate behavior, environmental cues, emotional states, or social prompts. Understanding these mechanisms provides leverage. Once identified, routines can be crafted to replace ineffective patterns with intentional actions that reinforce competence and personal integrity. Morning habits are particularly influential because they establish the tone for the entire day. Waking at a consistent time, hydrating, and engaging in a brief period of focused reflection or physical movement signals to the mind and body that the day will be approached with intention. Each of these actions, while small individually, communicates a commitment to discipline. The psychological impact is profound. Starting the day with deliberate action primes higher performance, cultivates confidence, and reinforces the expectation that effort and attention are non-negotiable. Consistency in the execution of routines strengthens identity. Every repeated action is a vote cast for the type of person one wants to become. When standards are integrated into the fabric of daily habits, whether through punctuality, preparation, or deliberate practice, the mind internalizes these expectations. The repetition ingrains a behavioral baseline, creating automaticity and excellence. Over time, what once required effort becomes instinctive, allowing focus and energy to be redirected toward advancing growth and addressing complex challenges. Standards rise not by chance but through methodical cultivation of disciplined routine. Raising standards also requires deliberate challenge. Routines should not merely maintain current functioning. They should progressively extend capability. This could mean incrementally increasing physical activity, dedicating more time to skill development, or setting higher benchmarks for quality and work output. Structured routines create a framework in which growth is predictable and measurable. Small, repeated challenges embedded into daily behavior expand capacity without creating chaos, making sustained improvement feasible. The key is balance. Push boundaries while preserving the consistency that supports long-term adherence. Environment serves as a silent partner in reinforcing elevated routines. Surroundings communicate what is expected and permissible. A workspace organized to facilitate focus, tools arranged for immediate access, and a living environment that promotes order and cleanliness all signal that high standards are non-negotiable. Visual and physical cues subtly encourage adherence to routines, reducing the mental energy needed to initiate and sustain desired behaviors. The environment is thus not passive. It actively participates in shaping habits and reinforcing the standards embedded within them. Intentional sequencing within routines amplifies effectiveness. The order of actions matters because early wins create momentum for subsequent tasks. Begin the day with high priority or high effort activities to leverage peak energy and attention. Follow with tasks that maintain focus but require less creative input, and reserve lighter or restorative activities for periods of natural fatigue. Strategic sequencing not only increases efficiency, but also models high standards through structured, purposeful execution. Each sequence reinforces a culture of intentionality within the day, where effort and quality are targetable. Reflection and adaptation are integral to maintaining routines that elevate standards. Life is dynamic, and rigid adherence without assessment risks stagnation or misalignment with evolving goals. Each week, review the routines which actions consistently contribute to progress, which require adjustment, and where standards have slipped. This process of self-monitoring ensures that routines are not rote, but responsive, continuously calibrated to push boundaries while reinforcing desirable behaviors. Reflection transforms routine from mechanical repetition into a feedback-driven tool for sustained improvement. Energy management is critical when designing elevated routines. Sustained high performance requires alignment between physical, emotional, and cognitive states. Integrate practices that replenish energy, adequate sleep, nutritional intake, brief restorative breaks, and controlled exposure to stressors within routines. Recognizing the interplay between energy and tenure ensures that elevated standards are not pursued at the expense of well-being. The routines themselves become mechanisms to protect and amplify energy, making disciplined actions sustainable rather than transient or exhausting. Accountability enhances the power of routines. Sharing objectives, progress markers, or daily commitments with a trusted individual reinforces adherence and motivates consistency. Even minimal accountability triggers internal pressure to uphold personal standards. The act of reporting or reviewing behavior externally crystallizes intentions, making deviation more apparent and reinforcing discipline. Accountability does not merely encourage compliance. It strengthens identity by aligning external perception with internal expectation, further embedding high standards into everyday practice. Progress measurement is an essential component of elevated routines. Track performance against clear, specific criteria that reflect the intended standard. This could include completion rates, quality benchmarks, skill advancement, or behavioral consistency. Tangible metrics create objective feedback loops, preventing routines from devolving into symbolic gestures without impact. Measurement illuminates areas of excellence and gaps needing attention, providing both motivation and evidence that standards are rising through disciplined action. The mind responds to observable progress, reinforcing adherence and encouraging incremental improvement. Habits of attention complement physical routines. Mindfulness practices, intentional pauses or focused breathing, interspersed within daily structures, maintain cognitive clarity and emotional balance. Elevated routines are not merely about activity but about engagement, being fully present and deliberate in each moment. Attention management ensures that behaviors are executed at the highest possible level, preventing the dilution of standards by distraction or autopilot action. The quality of engagement is as significant as the quantity of tasks performed. Integration of purpose into every routine reinforces standards beyond mechanics. Each action should align with long-term objectives and personal values. This connection transforms mundane tasks into meaningful practice, enhancing motivation and endurance. When routines are infused with significance, they carry more weight psychologically, making adherence easier and more satisfying. Elevation of standards is not superficial. It is embedded in a consistent alignment between behavior and purpose, where each repeated action reflects a commitment to excellence. Flexibility within structure allows routines to sustain over time. While consistency is essential, routines must accommodate shifts in context, priority, and energy. Adaptive routines preserve the underlying principle of raising standards while adjusting methods to remain feasible. This prevents rigidity from undermining long-term discipline, ensuring that high standards are maintained through realistic, resilient structures. Discipline is not inflexibility. It is the capacity to consistently act at a high level within the evolving circumstances of life. Celebration of small victories strengthens adherence to elevated routines. Recognition of progress, no matter how modest, reinforces behavior and motivates continued effort. Each completed action aligned with high standards acts as a micro-reward, building confidence and reinforcing the neural pathways associated with discipline. This positive reinforcement creates a self-sustaining cycle, where repeated success supports ongoing commitment to raising standards. The cumulative effect of these micro-achievements shapes identity and elevates expectations organically. Routines are the framework through which excellence becomes habitual. They structure effort, protect attention, cultivate energy, and embed growth into the daily fabric of life. Each consistent, deliberate action communicates to the mind and body that high standards are expected and achievable. Over time, these actions compound, transforming ordinary performance into extraordinary results. Standards rise not through sporadic effort or external pressure, but through the deliberate, repeated cultivation of behaviors that reflect competence, discipline, and integrity. The essence of elevated routines is the quiet power of repetition, purpose, and progressive refinement. To implement this today, identify one existing routine and intentionally enhance it to reflect a higher standard. Adjust the sequence, add a purposeful action, or refine the quality of execution. Observe the impact on performance, energy, and mindset. Repeat the process across other routines, layer by layer. Over weeks and months, this continuous refinement elevates the baseline of behavior, ensuring that every day is structured, not just for completion, but for excellence. Standards are raised one deliberate, repeated action at a time, and the life shaped by such routines becomes an enduring testament to discipline, intention, and relentless pursuit of growth. Number 5, protect energy from draining influences. Energy is the invisible currency that fuels every action, thought, and decision. It is finite, yet often treated as limitless, leaving individuals exhausted, scattered, and vulnerable to distraction. Protecting energy is not indulgence. It is a prerequisite for high performance, clarity, and sustained growth. Draining influences, whether external pressures, toxic relationships, unnecessary obligations, or internal negative patterns, erode focus and reduce capacity. Understanding how to identify, manage, and shield oneself from these influences is central to mastering life. The ability to protect energy creates a reserve that powers intentional action, sharp thinking, and enduring resilience. The first step is to recognize the sources of depletion. Many people are unaware of the subtle ways energy is drained until fatigue becomes unavoidable. External sources include environments saturated with chaos, persistent noise, conflicting demands, and people who thrive on negativity or emotional volatility. Internal drains are equally insidious. Habitual worry, self-criticism, indecision, and overthinking act as continuous energy leaks. Begin with a careful inventory of daily experiences and emotional responses, noting moments of sudden fatigue, irritation, or distraction. Patterns emerge revealing which influences sap vitality and which replenish it. Boundaries are the primary defense against energy loss. Establishing limits with people, technology, and obligations is not selfish. It is strategic preservation. Communicate clearly what can be engaged with and what can. This could mean limiting social interactions that pull focus, scheduling specific times for messaging, or declining invitations that do not serve personal priorities. Boundaries signal to others that attention and energy are valuable, while also reinforcing internal discipline. Every boundary respected strengthens the ability to maintain consistent effort in areas that matter most. Environmental control significantly impacts energy conservation. Spaces cluttered with noise, mess, or constant sensory stimuli drain cognitive and emotional reserves. Arrange physical surroundings to support focus, calm, and efficiency. Clean, organized, and intentionally designed spaces reduce decision fatigue and friction, allowing energy to be directed toward meaningful tasks. Small details, a well-lit workspace, a comfortable chair, or organized tools cumulatively reduce micro-drains that otherwise erode stamina throughout the day. Relationships have an outsized impact on energy levels. Some individuals uplift, inspire, and challenge constructively. Others diminish, distract, or provoke unnecessary stress. Conduct an honest assessment of social interactions. Identify those that consistently leave tension, irritation, or emotional depletion in their wake. Consider limiting exposure, adjusting expectations, or redefining the nature of engagement. Energy protection in this realm is not avoidance but selective interaction, prioritizing relationships that align with growth, respect, and reciprocity, while reducing influence from toxic or draining individuals. Prioritization is essential for conserving energy. Attempting to satisfy every demand or obligation results in constant activation of cognitive and emotional resources. Create a clear hierarchy of tasks, focusing on high-impact actions that advance objectives and personal standards. Delegate or defer tasks that do not serve core goals. Learning to release attachment to minor or irrelevant concerns frees significant reserves of energy, allowing attention to concentrate on work and relationships that matter most. The discipline of selective engagement is a cornerstone of sustainable performance. Mental hygiene is as important as environmental control. Internal chatter, negative self-talk, and habitual rumination consume cognitive and emotional energy. Recognize recurring thought patterns that contribute to fatigue. Techniques such as structured reflection, journaling, or brief mindfulness exercises externalize and organize mental activity. This practice transforms internal noise into actionable insight, reducing wasted energy and creating space for strategic thinking. Strengthening the mind's capacity to manage its own influence is a critical component of protection from energy drains. Nutrition, movement, and rest directly influence resilience against draining influences. Energy is a physiological as well as psychological resource. Irregular meals, poor hydration, lack of exercise, and insufficient sleep amplify susceptibility to both internal and external drains. Integrating consistent, healthful practices, balanced meals, daily movement, and deliberate sleep routines fortifies the body's capacity to sustain focus and respond to challenges without depletion. Treat physical energy as a foundational pillar supporting all higher-order functions. Digital consumption must be managed deliberately. Continuous notifications, excessive scrolling, and unfiltered media exposure fragment attention and exhaust mental reserves. Create structured interaction with technology, scheduled email checks, limited social media time, and mindful engagement with news or entertainment. Introduce friction to prevent impulsive consumption, such as logging out of applications or using focus tools to block interruptions. These adjustments reduce reactive energy loss and maintain sustained cognitive capacity for tasks of true importance. Stress management is a proactive form of energy protection. Chronic stress silently drains vitality, even when performance remains outwardly functional. Incorporate techniques to release tension, such as short physical activity bursts, controlled breathing, or brief meditation intervals. Address stressors at their source rather than merely coping with symptoms. By regulating physiological responses, energy is preserved for productive action rather than spent on unnecessary internal conflict. Resilient systems, both mental and physical, are essential to maintain clarity and drive. Micro breaks interspersed strategically within routines conserve energy over extended periods. Even brief pauses to stand, stretch, or breathe deeply reset focus and prevent cognitive overload. Structured intervals for recovery prevent the accumulation of subtle depletion, ensuring that high performance can be maintained throughout the day. Energy is not simply accumulated, it is managed and replenished systematically. These intentional pauses function as maintenance for both mind and body, reinforcing endurance and capacity. The power of saying no cannot be overstated. Every affirmative decision consumes attention and emotional bandwidth. Protecting energy requires careful consideration of commitments. Evaluate opportunities and requests through a lens of alignment with values, priorities, and capacity. Declining low-value or misaligned obligations is not rejection of others but affirmation of oneself. The cumulative effect of disciplined refusal protects cognitive resources for the pursuit of meaningful goals and the maintenance of personal integrity. Visualization and mental rehearsal strengthen the capacity to resist draining influences. Anticipate potential stressors, interruptions, or energy drains, and mentally prepare strategies for engagement or avoidance. This preemptive approach reduces reactive energy loss and maintains focus under pressure. The mind becomes conditioned to handle challenges deliberately rather than emotionally, conserving reserves for action and problem solving. Rehearsed strategies reduce the cost of unforeseen energy drains, creating a buffer of resilience and foresight. Regular reflection consolidates awareness and reinforces protective strategies. At the end of each day, note moments of energy loss, identify triggers, and consider actionable adjustments. Continuous reflection fosters learning, adapts routines, and strengthens judgment. By externalizing evaluation and integrating lessons systematically, energy is managed proactively rather than reactively. This process ensures that protective measures evolve alongside changing circumstances, sustaining resilience over the long term. Long-term energy preservation also involves aligning activities with purpose, engaging in meaningful work, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and pursuing growth energizes rather than depletes. Misaligned activities drain not only time, but the vital sense of engagement and fulfillment. Choosing where to invest attention and effort consciously directs energy toward constructive, rewarding outcomes. The deliberate alignment of actions with values and priorities creates a self-reinforcing loop of vitality, motivation, and sustained performance. Emotional self-regulation is integral to defending energy. Reacting impulsively to frustration, anger, or disappointment amplifies depletion. Develop techniques to pause before responding, observe internal states objectively, and select measured, intentional responses. Each choice to respond deliberately rather than reactively preserves energy and reinforces control over internal states. Mastery of emotional energy directly impacts cognitive stamina, decision-making quality, and resilience in the face of persistent demands. Small, consistent victories build energy reserves, Psychologically, completing tasks, maintaining boundaries, and honoring personal commitments create feedback loops of confidence and motivation. Energy protection is not only about avoiding drains, it is about reinforcing sources of vitality through disciplined, repeated action. Every small success contributes to a sense of mastery, which further fuels attention, initiative, and resilience, making subsequent challenges easier to manage. To implement energy protection, begin by identifying a single drain that occurs daily. Establish a boundary or adjustment to eliminate or mitigate it. Observe the immediate effect on focus, emotional state, and productivity. Repeat the process across other drains incrementally, layering interventions to create a holistic shield. Over time, consistent vigilance transforms daily experience. The mind and body are less scattered, performance increases, and capacity for growth expands. Energy is preserved not through avoidance alone, but through intentional architecture, disciplined attention, and repeated reinforcement. Guarding energy is not passive. It is an active, ongoing responsibility. Each decision, interaction, and environment shapes available reserves. Conscious effort to identify drains, implement boundaries, and cultivate restoration ensures that energy flows toward priorities rather than dissipating in triviality. The practice of energy protection is cumulative. Small, daily adjustments amplify over weeks and months, creating sustained capacity for achievement, creativity, and resilience. Mastery of energy is mastery of life itself, enabling deliberate action, deep engagement, and the fulfillment of potential in every meaningful dimension. Number 6. Track progress to boost confidence. Progress is the fuel of confidence. Without a clear sense of forward movement, doubt creeps in, motivation wanes, and even consistent effort can feel meaningless. Tracking progress transforms invisible effort into visible results, creating tangible proof that actions are effective and reinforcing self-belief. Confidence is not granted through mere desire. It is earned through consistent evidence of growth. By systematically observing, measuring, and reflecting on accomplishments, even small ones, the mind internalizes capability, creating a cycle where effort generates results, and results amplify resolve. Begin by establishing clear benchmarks. Progress cannot be measured without defined criteria. Set specific, observable goals that can be quantified or clearly assessed. For example, if learning a language is the objective, define measurable milestones, such as the number of new words mastered, sentences constructed, or hours practiced. If fitness is the target, record repetitions, distance, or intensity levels. The act of translating abstract objectives into concrete metrics converts vague aspirations into actionable pathways. Without these markers, effort may feel aimless and confidence remains fragile. Daily tracking creates immediate feedback. Simple methods, journaling, spreadsheets, progress apps, or physical charts externalize effort, making performance visible. Recording accomplishments, however minor, produces a compounding effect. The mind perceives repeated success, reinforcing a sense of agency and capability. Daily observation converts incremental actions into a narrative of competence, proving that consistent effort yields results. Over time, this accumulation forms a tangible ledger of achievement, directly countering internal skepticism and self-doubt. Visualization of progress amplifies the psychological impact. After documenting progress, take moments to reflect on what has been accomplished. Imagine the trajectory from starting point to current position, acknowledging the distance traveled. This mental rehearsal strengthens self-perception, creating a sense of movement and growth even before external rewards are realized. The mind begins to associate effort with advancement, reinforcing the motivation to continue. Confidence grows when the brain experiences success tangibly, not abstractly. Small, frequent wins are more impactful than sporadic, large victories. The brain responds to immediate reinforcement. Observing continuous improvement nurtures self-belief. Break larger objectives into micro-tasks that can be consistently completed and tracked. Each recorded success provides proof that the process works. The cumulative effect is a deep-rooted sense of capability, independent of external validation. Confidence built in this manner is resilient because it is grounded in repeated demonstration of skill and commitment, rather than fleeting praise. Tracking also illuminates weaknesses, providing opportunities for strategic adjustment. Accurate records reveal patterns of stagnation or decline, allowing timely interventions. This prevents frustration and wasted effort by identifying bottlenecks or ineffective methods. The act of observing shortcomings without judgment fosters a problem-solving mindset. Confidence does not require perfection. It requires knowledge that improvements are achievable and that actions can be calibrated for better results. Progress measurement is therefore both motivational and diagnostic, offering clarity and control simultaneously. Consistency is reinforced through visible progress. Momentum builds when daily effort produces observable change. Even small incremental steps compound psychologically, showing the mind that commitment is effective. By observing patterns over time, confidence becomes self-reinforcing. Effort generates results. Results validate effort, and validation encourages further dedication. This creates a positive loop where discipline is fueled by proof of capability, and capability is confirmed by disciplined action. Tracking transforms repetition into meaningful accumulation rather than mechanical task completion. Physical recording enhances engagement and memory. Writing down or marking progress creates sensory reinforcement. Seeing numbers rise, checking off tasks, or charting milestones visually engages multiple cognitive pathways. This multisensory interaction strengthens the connection between effort and achievement. The tangible evidence of improvement is more convincing to the mind than abstract recollection. Daily visual reinforcement solidifies self-perception as someone capable, reliable, and effective, making confidence a natural outcome of consistent observation. Accountability magnifies the impact of tracking. Sharing progress with mentors, peers, or partners increases adherence and magnifies the psychological effect of observed achievement. Reporting metrics forces attention to consistency and quality, while external recognition reinforces internal validation. The combination of personal tracking and external accountability creates an environment where confidence is both cultivated and observed. This dual reinforcement strengthens self-belief more rapidly than solitary observation alone. Adaptation is enhanced by systematic progress monitoring. By analyzing trends, patterns, and outcomes, strategies can be optimized continuously. Effective tracking allows adjustments in methodology, timing, intensity, or focus without losing sight of overarching goals. The clarity that emerges from structured observation prevents stagnation and maintains momentum. Confidence grows not only from seeing accomplishments, but also from knowing the path is manageable, adaptable, and evidence-driven. The mind experiences mastery through both achievement and informed strategy. Milestones serve as motivational anchors. Establish clear points along the journey to assess cumulative achievement. These markers provide psychological checkpoints, breaking overwhelming objectives into digestible segments. Observing milestone attainment generates surges of satisfaction and reinforces the belief that continued effort produces tangible outcomes. Milestones also serve as benchmarks for reflection, teaching lessons about persistence, strategy, and self-efficacy. Each reached milestone is proof that progress is not accidental, but the result of deliberate, consistent action. Visualization complements quantitative tracking. Periodically imagine the desired outcome as vividly as possible, connecting the current progress to the ultimate objective. This strengthens the neural pathways associated with goal attainment, aligning effort with motivation. Mental rehearsal of success, reinforced by recorded progress, cements confidence in the process. The brain begins to perceive achievement as inevitable when consistent effort is paired with conscious recognition of growth. Visualization and tracking work together to make advancement both observable and psychologically convincing. Celebrating small accomplishments reinforces momentum. Recognize and internalize victories along the way, even if minor. Positive reinforcement strengthens the association between effort and reward. Each celebration, internal or external, signals to the brain that progress matters and effort is worthwhile. The psychological boost from acknowledging achievements sustains motivation during challenging periods. Confidence is cumulative, formed not from singular triumphs, but from continuous recognition of incremental advancement. Errors and setbacks provide valuable feedback when tracking is implemented. Instead of undermining confidence, carefully documented challenges clarify lessons and reveal adjustment opportunities. Observing setbacks as part of a broader trajectory prevents discouragement and maintains belief in long-term capability. The mind learns to interpret obstacles as temporary deviations rather than permanent failure. Confidence grows because tracking demonstrates that even when progress falters, forward movement is measurable, attainable, and recoverable. Time-based metrics reinforce pacing and persistence, recording not just outcomes but durations, frequency, and effort invested creates a fuller picture of growth. This helps recognize patterns, optimize performance, and validate that sustained commitment produces measurable advancement. The sense of temporal accumulation, seeing progress built day by day, week by week, anchors confidence in persistence and reinforces patience. Success is viewed not as a single event, but as a predictable result of continuous, tracked engagement. Self-reflection deepens the impact of recorded progress. Analyze trends, methods, and strategies, then adjust routines to maximize effectiveness. This intentional assessment turns tracking into a dynamic tool for learning, not merely record-keeping. Confidence is enhanced by the knowledge that actions are improving systematically and that control over outcomes is increasing. The mind becomes adept at translating observation into optimization, reinforcing both capability and autonomy. To begin, select a meaningful objective and define measurable indicators. Decide on a consistent method for recording outcomes, whether daily, weekly, or per task. Commit to reviewing these records with attention and honesty. Observe patterns, celebrate small victories, adjust methods when needed, and track consistently over time. The accumulation of documented effort produces proof of capability, strengthens belief in personal competence, and transforms uncertainty into structured confidence. Tracking progress converts abstract aspiration into concrete achievement. Each observation, measurement, and reflection compounds psychologically, creating visible evidence that effort produces results. Confidence emerges as a natural byproduct of consistent action documented over time. By making growth observable, measurable, and reflective, the mind internalizes the narrative of capability, resilience, and success. The continuous cycle of action, documentation, and review transforms effort into proof, doubts into certainty, and ambition into sustained, self-reinforcing confidence. Number 7. Practice resilience when motivation drops. Resilience is the ability to continue moving forward even when motivation fades. Motivation is fleeting, fluctuating with moods, circumstance, and external rewards, but resilience is constant, cultivated through practice and deliberate habits. Relying solely on motivation is a trap. Those who achieve lasting success understand that persistence is not a function of feeling inspired, but of disciplined action. Despite the absence of enthusiasm, practicing resilience transforms setbacks, fatigue, and uncertainty into opportunities to strengthen character and deepen resolve. It is the steady engine that carries effort when excitement wanes, bridging the gap between desire and achievement. The first principle of resilience is acceptance. Motivation will not always be present, and resistance to its absence amplifies struggle. Recognizing that feelings of fatigue, doubt, or inertia are natural human experiences allows one to engage with them without being paralyzed. Accepting the ebb and flow of energy prevents emotional derailment and preserves focus. Resilient individuals understand that action does not require perfect emotion alignment. It requires commitment to principles and long-term goals, independent of immediate sentiment. Discipline functions as the backbone of resilience. Creating consistent routines ensures that progress continues even when enthusiasm is low. Daily habits, meticulously crafted and adhered to, act as automatic conduits for effort. Tasks that are ritualized demand less cognitive negotiation, reducing the dependence on transient motivation. By building behaviors into predictable patterns, resilience is reinforced because action no longer relies on fluctuating willpower. The mind becomes accustomed to persistence as a default mode, cultivating endurance and reliability. Breaking larger goals into smaller, manageable tasks strengthens the capacity to act during low motivation periods. Large objectives can feel overwhelming and demoralizing when energy is low, creating resistance and procrastination. By identifying achievable subtasks, progress is maintained and momentum is preserved. Completing even modest actions generates subtle psychological reinforcement, triggering a sense of capability that feeds further effort. Resilience is reinforced not only by grand achievements, but also by the accumulation of small, deliberate steps taken consistently. Mental reframing is a critical component of enduring effort. Challenges and obstacles should be interpreted not as signals to stop, but as invitations to adapt and learn. Viewing difficulties as temporary and navigable allows action to continue even when enthusiasm diminishes. The mind develops a growth-oriented perspective, understanding that perseverance in the face of adversity is the path to mastery. Reframing setbacks as instructive, rather than punitive, shifts energy from discouragement to strategic engagement, making resilience a natural response. Physical preparedness supports psychological endurance. Fatigue, poor nutrition, or inadequate rest magnifies the perception of difficulty and reduces tolerance for challenge. Establishing foundational habits, adequate sleep, balanced meals, regular exercise, creates a physiological baseline that buffers against the erosive effects of low motivation. A body capable of sustaining prolonged effort reinforces the mind's capacity to persist. Energy management, therefore, is inseparable from the cultivation of resilience, ensuring that physical depletion does not translate into psychological surrender. Environmental design plays a subtle yet profound role in supporting resilience. Surroundings that encourage focus, minimize distractions, and provide cues for action reduce the friction of initiation. When workspaces in daily contexts are intentionally structured, action requires less negotiation, and momentum is preserved. Simple environmental triggers, organized desks, visible reminders of goals, or designated areas for focused activity serve as external scaffolding that reinforces the internal habit of persistence. By shaping surroundings to align with objectives, resilience is amplified. Self-compassion is often overlooked in the cultivation of resilience. Recognizing that occasional dips in motivation are normal prevents internal criticism from eroding effort. Judging oneself harshly amplifies stress and diminishes the capacity for sustained action. Instead, treat periods of low drive as opportunities to practice patience, recommit to goals, and observe behavior with equanimity. Self-compassion strengthens the mind's resilience by maintaining clarity, reducing emotional turbulence, and preserving energy for purposeful action, rather than self-recrimination. Visualization and mental rehearsal can bolster resilience when motivation declines. By mentally walking through the steps required to achieve objectives, the brain reinforces the pattern of effort and familiarizes itself with success. Imagining the satisfaction of completing tasks or achieving milestones engages reward pathways, providing a subtle substitute for motivation. The mind begins to associate action with positive outcome, even when emotional drive is low, making persistence feel more natural and achievable. Accountability enhances endurance. Sharing goals with mentors, peers, or partners creates an external anchor that encourages continued effort. Knowing that others are tracking progress or expecting follow-up provides an added incentive to maintain action despite internal lethargy. The combination of personal commitment and external reinforcements strengthens resilience by creating multiple layers of responsibility and motivation, ensuring that low personal drive does not completely stall progress. Reflection consolidates resilience over time. Regularly reviewing actions taken during low motivation periods reveals patterns, strategies, and psychological triggers. Understanding how persistence was maintained provides insight into personal strengths and weaknesses, enabling refinement of approach. Reflection transforms sporadic endurance into deliberate skill, reinforcing the belief that sustained action is achievable even when emotional impetus is absent. The mind learns from experience, converting transient setbacks into long-term capability. Preparation for anticipated low motivation periods is another key strategy. Recognize recurring cycles of energy or emotional dips, and plan routines accordingly. Establish tasks that can be completed with minimal effort, yet maintain forward movement. Creating a reservoir of ready-to-do actions ensures that even during inertia, effort continues. Anticipatory planning transforms potential stagnation into opportunity, leveraging foresight to stabilize performance when internal drive fluctuates. Emotional regulation is vital to maintain resilience. Low motivation often triggers frustration, irritability, or anxiety, which if unmanaged can amplify withdrawal from effort. Techniques such as deep breathing, brief movement, or mindful observation of emotions help preserve focus and prevent escalation. By controlling reactions to low drive, energy is conserved and applied productively, ensuring that resilience is expressed through sustained action rather than reactive retreat. Celebrating persistence rather than outcomes reinforces the habit of endurance. Recognize and internalize the act of continuing despite resistance. Rewarding effort cultivates internal validation, independent of external results, shifting reliance away from motivation toward deliberate action. Each acknowledgement of persistence strengthens neural pathways associated with sustained effort, making future low motivation periods more manageable and reinforcing confidence in the ability to endure challenges. Incremental adaptation is a component of resilient practice. As goals evolve and circumstances shift, methods of persistence must also adjust. Flexibility within structured effort ensures that continuation is sustainable rather than rigid. Observing what works, discarding what hinders, and modifying strategies without abandoning objectives preserves momentum and prevents discouragement. Resilience thrives not in stubborn repetition but in informed, adaptive persistence, where the capacity to respond to change reinforces long-term achievement. The mindset of viewing motivation as supplementary rather than foundational transforms approach. Action does not depend on feeling. It depends on commitment, strategy, and structured effort. Resilience is cultivated by consistently moving forward in spite of emotional fluctuation, creating a self-reinforcing cycle where completion strengthens confidence, which in turn enhances the ability to continue when motivation is low. This internalization of effort as independent from mood establishes a durable foundation for success. To apply these principles, begin by identifying a recurring task or goal and observe the points at which motivation dips. Implement small strategies, break the task into manageable steps, create environmental cues, establish brief routines, or enlist accountability. Take deliberate action regardless of emotional inclination. Track these efforts to observe patterns and recognize persistence as an achievement in itself. Over time, the repeated practice of acting without reliance on motivation solidifies resilience, transforming temporary lapses in enthusiasm into opportunities for growth, self-mastery, and enduring accomplishment. Practicing resilience when motivation drops converts vulnerability into strength. The capacity to act consistently despite fluctuating emotional energy distinguishes those who achieve long-term objectives from those who rely on inconsistent inspiration. Each deliberate step in the absence of motivation reinforces character, cultivates competence, and expands endurance. By accepting natural cycles, structuring action, and reinforcing persistence through reflection, accountability, and self-compassion, resilience becomes a cultivated skill. Motivation may ebb, but resilience carries effort forward, ensuring progress, mastery, and fulfillment of potential even under the most challenging circumstances. Number 8. Invest in skills that sharpen advantage. Skill is the currency of leverage in life. Talent alone can open doors, but deliberate skill acquisition creates lasting advantage, separates effort from results, and compounds over time. Investing in skills is not a passive process. It is an intentional, continuous commitment to growth, refinement, and mastery. Those who cultivate abilities that amplify effectiveness gain a disproportionate edge in every domain, whether personal, professional, or relational. The act of developing expertise transforms potential into tangible results, strengthens confidence, and ensures resilience against changing circumstances and competition. The first step in skill investment is identifying high-leverage abilities, those that produce outsized impact relative to effort. This requires an honest assessment of current strengths, gaps, and opportunities. High-leverage skills are often transferable, durable, and aligned with long-term objectives. For example, effective communication, critical thinking, problem-solving, and technical mastery can elevate performance across multiple areas of life. By prioritizing development in these domains, effort is concentrated where it generates the greatest return, creating a foundation for sustained advantage. Intentional practice is essential. Skills do not develop through exposure alone. They require focused, deliberate effort. This involves breaking abilities into component parts, targeting weaknesses, and engaging in repeated execution with critical evaluation. Merely performing tasks is insufficient. Progress comes from identifying errors, experimenting with improvement, and refining techniques systematically. The most successful individuals understand that mastery is a marathon of disciplined repetition, feedback, and iteration, rather than a sprint of superficial experience. Time investment is critical in skill cultivation. Allocating consistent, uninterrupted periods to deliberate practice ensures depth and retention. Sporadic or rushed effort produces superficial familiarity rather than true competence. Structured schedules, daily or weekly dedicated blocks for learning, practicing, and reviewing, create momentum and prevent skill stagnation. Over time, incremental hours compound into significant expertise, transforming effort into advantage. Time becomes not a passive measure but a strategic tool to elevate performance and expand capacity. Feedback accelerates growth. Seeking external perspectives, mentors, coaches, peers, or objective performance metrics identifies blind spots and confirms progress. Constructive critique is invaluable. It prevents reinforcement of errors and directs focus toward high-impact improvements. The willingness to embrace feedback distinguishes those who merely attempt skill development from those who achieve mastery. Continuous evaluation ensures that energy is invested effectively, minimizing wasted effort while maximizing the sharpening of advantage. Diversification of skill sets amplifies resilience and opportunity. Relying on a single ability risks vulnerability if circumstances shift. Complementary skills increase adaptability and enhance leverage. For instance, pairing technical expertise with interpersonal influence magnifies effectiveness in professional contexts. Expanding capacity across multiple domains creates versatility, enabling the application of abilities in varied situations. The strategic acquisition of interconnected skills generates exponential returns, as each new competence interacts with existing ones to elevate overall performance. Mindset influences skill acquisition profoundly. Approaching development with curiosity, persistence, and openness enhances retention and application. Avoid framing learning as a task to be endured. Instead, view it as an investment in capability that compounds over time. Patience and consistency are critical. Immediate results are rare, but long-term advantage accumulates steadily. A growth-oriented mindset transforms challenges into opportunities for refinement, failures into lessons, and effort into measurable progress. The psychological orientation toward learning directly amplifies the effectiveness of time and energy invested. Resources must be leveraged efficiently. Books, courses, mentors, workshops, and digital tools are means to accelerate proficiency. Selecting high-quality materials aligned with objectives ensures that energy is not wasted on low-value content. Structured learning paths that balance theory and practical application facilitate mastery faster than random exploration. Strategic resource utilization is itself a skill. Identifying and employing the most effective learning vehicles multiplies progress and conserves effort. Deliberate reflection solidifies skill acquisition. After practice, analyzing performance, documenting lessons, and adjusting approaches reinforce learning. Reflection transforms experience into knowledge, creating mental models that guide future action. This metacognitive layer strengthens understanding, reduces repetitive errors, and ensures that progress is not accidental but systematically cultivated. Reflection transforms effort into insight, embedding capability in both skill and judgment. Real-world application is indispensable. Practicing skills in controlled settings is necessary, but effectiveness is proven through implementation under real conditions. Challenges, constraints, and dynamic variables reveal nuances that cannot be replicated artificially. Application also strengthens confidence, showing that effort translates into tangible results. Theory without execution remains dormant. True advantage emerges when knowledge is operationalized, tested, and refined in practical context. Patience is required because skill advantage compounds over time. Short-term progress may appear slow, but consistent investment produces exponential impact. Cumulative expertise differentiates high achievers from the majority, who often abandon development prematurely. Understanding the temporal nature of skill building fosters persistence, reduces frustration, and reinforces commitment to long-term growth. Time is an ally when paired with disciplined effort and continuous learning. Prioritizing high-impact skills over trendy or superficial ones ensures sustainable advantage. Not every popular ability provides meaningful leverage. Evaluating relevance, transferability, and potential return ensures energy is directed where it matters. Strategic selection prevents dilution of effort and maximizes the power of acquired skills. Investing in foundational capabilities often yields greater long-term benefit than chasing immediate but shallow proficiencies. Mentorship accelerates learning and amplifies advantage. Guidance from experienced individuals provides insight, shortcuts, and context that solo practice rarely offers. Mentors expose blind spots, validate progress, and inspire higher standards. Leveraging the experience of others reduces trial and error, focusing effort on high-value activities and accelerating competence development. The mentorship relationship is a force multiplier in the pursuit of skill mastery. Tracking progress reinforces motivation and sharpens skill refinement. Documenting practice sessions, recording outcomes, and assessing improvement provides tangible evidence of development. Visibility into growth sustains effort, identifies areas for adjustment, and reinforces the sense of momentum. Progress tracking transforms abstract aspiration into measurable reality, ensuring that energy invested translates into noticeable confidence-building outcomes. Adaptation ensures skills remain relevant and effective. Continuous evolution of techniques, tools, and knowledge maintains competitive advantage. Industries, technologies, and social dynamics shift rapidly. Skills must evolve accordingly. Flexibility in learning and application prevents obsolescence, ensuring that investments in capability continue to yield returns despite changing circumstances. The most valuable skills are those that remain applicable and impactful across evolving contexts. The compounding effect of skill investment is profound. Each new ability enhances existing ones, creating networks of capability that amplify effectiveness. For example, mastering communication improves leadership, networking, and negotiation. Learning analytics enhances strategy and decision-making. The intersection of multiple competencies generates leverage far beyond the sum of individual skills. Strategic development transforms ordinary effort into a sustained advantage that grows with time and application. To begin, identify one high-impact skill relevant to current or long-term goals. Break it into manageable components. Allocate dedicated time for deliberate practice. Seek feedback, and apply learning in real-world contexts. Track progress, reflect consistently, and refine approach continuously. Layer complementary skills strategically to magnify impact. Over months and years, the deliberate investment of effort compounds into mastery, producing a durable advantage that separates consistent achievers from the rest. Investing in skills is an ongoing, intentional commitment that transforms potential into tangible influence and results. The combination of deliberate practice, feedback, reflection, application, and adaptation ensures that every action strengthens capability. Advantage is not granted passively. It is cultivated through sustained effort, strategic focus, and continuous refinement. Skill becomes a lever for opportunity, confidence, and resilience, providing an edge that is both durable and dynamic, enabling the consistent creation of results that outpace competitors and elevate personal and professional impact. Number 9, prioritize habits fueling long-term success. Long-term success is not the product of isolated effort or sporadic bursts of energy. It is the cumulative outcome of consistent habits. Habits are the building blocks of achievement, shaping behavior in ways that operate beneath conscious awareness. Prioritizing the right habits is essential because the small, repeated actions of today compound into the results of tomorrow. Without deliberate selection, habits can drift toward convenience or comfort, producing short-term satisfaction at the expense of enduring growth. The foundation of lasting success is therefore built upon intentional routines that consistently fuel progress, resilience, and capability. The first principle in prioritizing habits is clarity of purpose. Understand the outcomes you seek and the life you intend to create. Without a clear vision, daily actions become reactive and scattered, often reinforcing mediocrity rather than progress. Identify the habits that directly contribute to long-term objectives. These may include discipline in work, structured learning, financial prudence, physical health practices, and consistent self-reflection. When habits are aligned with meaningful goals, each repeated action becomes a deliberate step toward a larger vision, ensuring that effort accumulates rather than dissipates. Consistency is paramount. Even the most effective habits yield negligible results without regular execution. Establishing routines transforms deliberate effort into automatic behavior, reducing reliance on fluctuating motivation or willpower. Start with manageable, repeatable actions and expand gradually as stability is achieved. The compounding effect emerges over months and years. Small, consistent habits build momentum, reinforce identity, and solidify standards. Success is rarely dramatic in the short term, but becomes inevitable through persistent, aligned action over time. Prioritization requires discernment. Not all habits are equally valuable. Some actions provide immediate satisfaction, but minimal long-term benefit, while others may be challenging, delayed in gratification, but exponentially impactful. Allocate energy to behaviors with the greatest return on investment in future outcomes. For instance, reading daily, practicing critical skills, maintaining physical health, or saving a portion of income consistently produces exponential benefit. Ignoring this hierarchy risks depletion of energy on trivial activities, leaving long-term goals unmet despite apparent busyness. Habits are reinforced through environmental design. Surroundings, routines, and cues influence the automaticity of behavior. Arrange your environment to support the desired habits and remove friction for execution. For example, a workspace organized for focus encourages productivity, while keeping exercise equipment visible prompts physical activity. Strategic placement of reminders and structuring of daily schedules reduces decision fatigue and strengthens adherence to high-value behaviors. Environment acts as a silent partner, amplifying the effectiveness of chosen habits. Accountability accelerates habit formation and fortifies commitment. Sharing goals with mentors, peers, or accountability partners creates external reinforcement that complements internal discipline. Reporting progress or reflecting on adherence increases focus, reduces procrastination, and transforms commitment from private intention to observable action. Accountability ensures that even during periods of fatigue or distraction, habits continue to be executed, reinforcing the patterns that generate long-term success. Mindset shapes the effectiveness of habits. Viewing repetition and disciplined effort as investments rather than burdens reframes the daily struggle into a path of growth. Embracing discomfort as a necessary component of development strengthens adherence. The brain associates disciplined action with identity formation. Those who consistently enact high-value habits begin to see themselves as capable, reliable, and committed. This psychological shift sustains effort, even when immediate results are not evident, cementing long-term outcomes through identity alignment rather than transient motivation. Reflection and review solidify the impact of habits. Regular evaluation of behavior allows refinement, adaptation, and optimization. Identify which routines are producing desired outcomes and which require adjustment. Reflection converts mechanical repetition into meaningful strategic action, ensuring that habits evolve in alignment with shifting goals and circumstances. Continuous assessment prevents stagnation, reinforces accountability, and enhances the compounding effect by ensuring that each repeated action contributes maximally to long-term success. Energy management is integral to sustaining productive habits. Habits that demand high cognitive or physical effort must be supported by adequate rest, nutrition, and recovery. Without energy preservation, consistency falters and adherence declines. Incorporating restorative practices into routines ensures that the most impactful behaviors can be executed reliably over time. Strategic energy allocation prevents burnout, maintains focus, and preserves the capacity for deliberate action that drives enduring success. Prioritizing keystone habits amplifies overall performance. Keystone habits are those that catalyze multiple positive behaviors simultaneously. For example, regular exercise often improves energy levels, mental clarity, sleep quality, and stress management, which in turn enhance productivity and learning. Identifying and committing to these high-impact habits produces disproportionate benefits, creating momentum that spreads across multiple areas of life. Focusing on keystone behaviors multiplies returns, reinforcing long-term growth through interconnected action. Gradual escalation strengthens habit resilience. Begin with achievable tasks to establish consistency, then progressively increase complexity or intensity. This method prevents early burnout and fosters skill development, confidence, and endurance. Habits formed through progressive challenge are more likely to endure because they build competence and self-efficacy simultaneously. Long-term success is rarely achieved through sudden, extreme effort. It is through incremental, deliberate escalation of disciplined behaviors. Decision simplification supports adherence to long-term habits. Minimize unnecessary choices that drain cognitive energy and create friction. Standardize routines for critical behaviors, reducing reliance on willpower and moment-to-moment motivation. Automating decisions related to high-value habits preserves mental bandwidth, allowing focus on execution and continuous improvement. Simplification transforms intention into action, creating reliable structures that enforce consistency and amplify the impact of each repeated behavior. Patience is critical. High-value habits rarely produce immediate gratification. Long-term success requires the acceptance of delayed rewards and the persistence to continue despite invisible progress. Embracing the timeline of accumulation prevents discouragement and sustains commitment. Habits function as deposits into a compounding account of capability, influence, and results. The ultimate payoff is magnified over time, and the discipline to prioritize and maintain behaviors during the unseen accumulation phase distinguishes those who achieve enduring success. Integration of habits into identity ensures durability. Actions that align with self-perception are more likely to persist. Viewing oneself as disciplined, growth-oriented, and committed makes adherence natural rather than burdensome. Habits that reinforce identity create a self-sustaining cycle. Consistent action strengthens self-perception, which in turn facilitates further repetition. This internal reinforcement secures behaviors against fluctuation in motivation, external distractions, or environmental pressures, anchoring long-term success in personal identity rather than temporary enthusiasm. Habits should also be aligned with personal values and purpose. Behavior disconnected from meaningful objectives is prone to abandonment. When daily actions reflect deeper priorities, persistence is easier to maintain, and satisfaction is amplified. Alignment ensures that habits serve both functional and motivational purposes, sustaining engagement over long periods. Long-term success is therefore rooted not only in execution, but in the resonance of actions with overarching goals and principles. Continuous learning enhances habit effectiveness. Incorporating reflection, adaptation, and skill development into routines ensures that behaviors remain relevant and efficient. Observing trends, researching best practices, and experimenting with improved methods strengthens outcomes and prevents stagnation. Habits evolve into systems of excellence, combining repeated action with iterative refinement. The compounding effect is maximized when each repetition becomes more informed, deliberate, and high quality than the last. To implement this, identify the handful of daily behaviors that produce the most significant impact on long-term objectives. Establish routines, design supportive environments, simplify decisions, and integrate these habits into identity. Track adherence, review progress, and adjust methods strategically. Layer these actions consistently, protect energy, and ensure alignment with purpose and value. Over months and years, this deliberate prioritization transforms small, consistent behaviors into enduring results, creating momentum, competence, and capability that defines long-term success. Prioritizing habits that fuel long-term success is not about perfection. It is about sustained, deliberate action in areas that truly matter. Each repeated behavior contributes incrementally to the creation of a life defined by achievement, resilience, and growth. By focusing on high-value routines, designing environments for consistency, reinforcing identity, and iterating with insight, long-term outcomes are no longer left to chance. Success becomes the inevitable consequence of deliberate, aligned, and persistent habits that compound steadily over time, producing results far beyond what isolated effort could ever achieve. Number 10. Lead life with steady intention. Living with steady intention is the cornerstone of a life that is both fulfilling and effective. Most individuals drift through each day reacting to circumstances, distractions, and fleeting emotions, allowing external forces to dictate their path. Steady intention, by contrast, is the deliberate alignment of thoughts, actions, and choices with long-term objectives and personal values. It transforms life from a series of random events into a purposeful journey, where each decision, no matter how small, contributes to a coherent narrative of growth, accomplishment, and self-mastery. The first step in cultivating steady intention is awareness. Understanding where energy, time, and attention are currently invested reveals whether actions are congruent with goals. Without this clarity, effort often diffuses across trivial tasks or misaligned priorities, producing busyness without meaningful progress. Daily reflection, self-assessment, and honest evaluation of decisions and habits create the insight necessary to recalibrate focus. Awareness acts as the compass that ensures every movement is purposeful rather than reactionary, guiding life toward chosen outcomes rather than external circumstance. Once clarity is established, defining priorities is essential. Steady intention is anchored in deliberate selection, choosing which objectives, values, and relationships deserve focus, and which require restraint or elimination. Prioritization is not about doing everything, but about consistently directing effort toward what generates the greatest impact on long-term vision. Each prioritized activity becomes a building block in a larger framework of purpose, reinforcing identity, capability, and direction. Clear boundaries around priorities prevent energy from being diluted by distractions or irrelevant obligations. Planning and structure reinforce intention. Life that is unstructured often succumbs to chaos, where urgent matters overshadow meaningful endeavors. Implementing daily, weekly, and long-term plans provides scaffolding for deliberate action. Structuring tasks, rituals, and routines ensures that essential actions are executed consistently, even when motivation fluctuates. Plans act as both map and momentum, converting intention into tangible steps while protecting against drift. The discipline to follow these plans translates vision into action and sustains forward progress. Consistency in action is the bridge between intention and results. Steady intention is meaningless without repeated execution. Establishing habits, routines, and systems aligned with values ensures that effort compounds over time. Daily choices, even small ones, accumulate into significant outcomes, demonstrating the power of persistence guided by purpose. The compounding effect of repeated, intentional action is the foundation of mastery, influence, and sustained achievement. Results are not the product of isolated effort, but of disciplined consistency fueled by clear intention. Mindfulness enhances the practice of steady intention. Being fully present in each task ensures that actions are deliberate rather than automatic. Mindful engagement allows for observation of internal states, reactions, and impulses, preventing distraction by fleeting desires or emotional turbulence. Awareness in real time strengthens decision-making, ensuring that choices reflect priorities rather than momentary convenience. The mind becomes a vigilant steward of energy and focus, reinforcing alignment between daily behavior and overarching objectives. Decision-making with intention is critical. Every choice carries consequences that accumulate over time. Quick, reactive decisions often satisfy immediate desires, but undermine long-term goals. By evaluating options against personal values and desired outcomes, Choices become instruments of progress rather than sources of drift. This disciplined approach transforms everyday moments into deliberate contributions toward a coherent life trajectory. Each decision, when made with steady intention, reinforces self-mastery, builds credibility, and strengthens momentum toward meaningful objectives. Emotional regulation underpins intentional living. Emotions are powerful drivers of behavior, and unchecked impulses often lead to deviation from priorities. Developing the capacity to observe, manage, and channel emotional responses ensures that actions remain consistent with values and goals. Steady intention requires that feelings inform rather than dictate choices. By mastering emotional influence, energy is preserved, clarity is maintained, and action remains aligned, even under stress, conflict, or uncertainty. Reflection and evaluation reinforce intentionality. Periodically reviewing decisions, outcomes, and behaviors ensures alignment with long-term objectives. Reflection identifies successes, missteps, and patterns that require adjustment. This process prevents inertia and complacency while fostering continuous learning. By systematically analyzing actions, the mind internalizes lessons, strengthens judgment, and cultivates foresight, creating a feedback loop that continually sharpens intentional practice. Steady intention thrives when reflection converts experience into insight, and insight into improved future action. Deliberate focus strengthens intentional execution. Avoiding multitasking and minimizing distractions ensures that energy is applied where it matters most. Deep engagement with high-value tasks enhances quality, efficiency, and mastery. Focused effort magnifies the effect of each action, producing outcomes that disproportionately exceed the time invested. Steady intention demands disciplined attention, transforming every effort into meaningful progress rather than scattered activity. The capacity to concentrate becomes a multiplier for results, reinforcing both confidence and capability. Purpose-driven relationships amplify the impact of steady intention. Surrounding oneself with individuals who share values, support growth, and provide constructive challenge reinforces alignment and accountability. Conversely, relationships that drain energy or divert focus undermine progress. Intentionally curating social and professional networks ensures that external influence complements, rather than conflicts with long-term objectives. These alliances provide guidance, inspiration, and resilience, creating an ecosystem that magnifies the effect of disciplined action. Adaptability enhances the sustainability of intention. Life is dynamic, and circumstances, resources, or challenges shift over time. Steady intention is not rigidity, it is alignment with underlying purpose, allowing methods and tactics to evolve while remaining consistent with overarching goals. Flexibility ensures resilience against unforeseen obstacles and facilitates innovation, maintaining forward momentum even in complex or changing environments. Adaptation preserves the integrity of intention while optimizing execution. Energy and health management support the endurance required for steady intention. Physical vitality, mental clarity, and emotional stability are prerequisites for sustained focus and deliberate action. Adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management create the foundation upon which intentional living rests. Without these elements, even the clearest intentions are vulnerable to fatigue, distraction, or diminished judgment. Maintaining energy ensures that decisions and actions are consistently aligned with long-term priorities. Visualization reinforces commitment to purpose. Mentally rehearsing desired outcomes, observing progress, and imagining successful execution strengthens neural pathways associated with persistence and achievement. Visualization transforms abstract goals into concrete mental representations, motivating disciplined action and reducing the gap between current behavior and desired results. By regularly connecting thought with intention, the mind internalizes purpose, making deliberate execution more natural and sustainable. Long-term thinking guides steady intention. Decisions and actions are evaluated not only for immediate effect, but for cumulative impact over weeks, months, and years. This perspective ensures that short-term temptation does not override enduring objectives, and that energy is consistently allocated to efforts that matter. Long-term orientation fosters patience, resilience, and strategic foresight, reinforcing the capacity to maintain action and alignment through challenges, setbacks, and fluctuations in circumstance. Steady intention cultivates integrity. Alignment between thought, word, and action strengthens credibility, self-respect, and trust. Consistent adherence to principles and priorities establishes reliability both internally and externally. This integrity becomes a force multiplier, enabling influence, authority, and leadership. Life lived with deliberate purpose generates outcomes that are predictable, sustainable, and reflective of true values, demonstrating that intentional action is both ethically sound and pragmatically effective. To implement steady intention, begin by clarifying long-term goals and values. Establish routines, boundaries, and priorities that align with those objectives. Maintain consistent action, reflect regularly, manage energy, and adapt strategies as circumstances evolve. Practice focused attention, deliberate decision-making, and emotional regulation to ensure actions remain aligned with purpose. Reinforce the process through accountability, meaningful relationships, and visualization. Over time, these deliberate practices compound, creating a life defined not by randomness or reaction, but by consistent, purposeful action that produces mastery, influence, and fulfillment. Leading life with steady intention transforms existence from passive drift to purposeful navigation. Each action becomes meaningful, each decision deliberate, and each challenge an opportunity to reinforce alignment with values. Momentum is built, not on fleeting inspiration but on disciplined execution, reflection, and adaptation. Through sustained focus, clarity, and deliberate choice, life evolves into a coherent narrative of growth, achievement, and self-mastery. Steady intention ensures that the energy invested today compounds into meaningful outcomes tomorrow, producing a life of impact, resilience, and fulfillment.